Welcome to another episode of Davinci Resolve Tips and Tricks. Today we're gonna be looking at grading. I think this is a good clip to just do some grading step by step so you can see how I do it. So in the previous episode we touched on color management. I believe that the easiest for us is Davinci YRGB. Let's keep it this way, and then let's work with Davinci Y Gamut Intermediate and Rec 709 Gamma 2.4. As explained, this is the gamma that's mostly used for web videos and TV. So the first thing we need to do is an input device transform, and on the output we will have an output device transform. More or less on this grade I'm thinking to do, and we can modify this along the way, but about 10 nodes. And knowing that this first one we're going to call it IDT, and the very last one is the ODT. So we'll need color space transform effect in the input and also on the output. So we already put it there. And now we go to the input effect, and the input color space is a one shot. So I use the A7S3 camera shooting S-Log3 Cine input color space and the gamma S-Log3. And output color space we're gonna use the Davinci Y Gamut, and output gamma the Davinci Intermediate. And then we're gonna select the output device. On this one we're ingesting, or we output it from the input, which was the Davinci Cine Gamut, input gamma Davinci Intermediate, and we're gonna output for Rec 709 and gamma 2.4. So this way I think it's the best way, and I think it's at the moment future proof for us, because on this way determine the input and the output properly utilizing the Davinci Intermediate Y Gamut. If I have to change it in the future, I can change this and it won't affect the grade. So it's gonna look the same, but outputting for a different medium. So it's gonna be sort of calibrated already, future proof as I call it. I'm gonna start dividing a few of these things, just knowing already more or less what I'm gonna be doing. So here I'm gonna name first and start balancing the image. So I'm gonna be balancing both exposure and overall color balance, and then utilizing the global wheel I can dial this back as if it was being dialed back on my camera. So I'm probably gonna go one stop below, and then I'm gonna try to balance the image. You can see here the separation of the colors, so the white balance is not quite accurate. So moving the wheels, and it's looking, at least this highlights, quite balanced. And now I'm gonna check on my parade how they're leveling, and I think I'm gonna bring the reds just a tiny bit down. I'm gonna use something that I haven't shown you before, which are called the printer lights. That's basically it's modifying the offset wheel a little bit more, but rather than using the mouse or the wheels or on a desktop device, you can use the numeric numbers on your extended keyboard. By default this is disabled, so you have to come to color and enable print light hotkeys, and then you have full, half or quarters. So you won't see me doing it, but I'm gonna be doing it. You can probably see the parade, how it modifies. So I'm getting a quarter down on the red. So yeah, I kind of like it where it's landing there. And the other thing I'm gonna do is just work on the lift. So you can see down here, probably this is Manpreet's clothing, so darkest point. I'm gonna try to balance that so the blacks don't have any tint. Cool, so I'm happy with that. That looks pretty much balanced. Let me do a before and after so you can see how we got rid of that green tint. So before and after. So I'm gonna go ahead and start creating the look that I have in mind. So I'm gonna be working on the curve, so creating my contrast and the look. I'm gonna leave these blacks a little bit up to there and create a smooth line up here, and bring a bit of the highlights there, creating more contrast. Maybe this is too soft. There we go. Maybe we can crush the blacks a bit more there, and now leave them so that they're a bit more milky. There we go. But here's the tip. So by having all this linked, you can see, let me unlink it. So you can see this is my luminance, and this is my red channel, my green and blue. So it created the same thing on all three. The thing is, it's fine because we said that red, green and blue at the same level, it gives us white. But by doing this, it will pop the saturation a little bit. So you can do it, of course I did it this way so I can show you that it's replicated on all. But if we disable and only work on the luminance, then you can clearly see the difference. That I'll probably bring it back. There's no added saturation. If I do on and off, there's no added saturation. I'm gonna lift the mid-tones a little bit down, just a tad there. I'll probably crush the blacks a tiny bit more. Cool, so I'm happy with that. And then I'm thinking coming here to the gain and ever so slightly give it a bit of cyan to the highlights and even out the blacks and go opposite ways towards the magenta. Yeah, I think I'm liking that. Maybe I'm gonna crunch this a little bit more. Before and after. And one more thing I'm gonna do, come to the hue versus hue, select the yellow and just inject a little bit of red into those yellows, because I think these tungsten lights were making the skin tones a bit ill. The other thing that I usually do is bring even more the saturation down, let's say 45, just it's very desaturated as an overall, but then use a color boost to push those colors that have been less saturated, in this case, like the skin tone. So this is looking a bit healthier, bit better. Cool, we're gonna work on this. Let's use this node for the skin. So in this case, yeah, I'm gonna qualify the skins, and I'm gonna work on the qualifier to try to qualify better, and then working on the matte finessing so we can get exactly what we want to. So we have selected the skin tones, but what we can do is work together with masks. So we can do, I mean, it's pretty broad, but I think, yeah, it should be fine. They may turn and we would still cover them. So cool. And once they're selected and masked, I'm gonna go to the gamma and, as always say, just, sort of try to go completely mental and then dial it back, way back until you find, sort of the right saturation there. So let me disable the masks. So before and after. So we're getting a bit of a punch. You can see in both Neil and Manpreet. And if I play this back, I mean, the masks are perfect, working very well. I can show you how the masks animate. So it's looking pretty good. So what's next, you would say? Can we just park it here? Well, we could, but I've got more ideas. So let's keep working on them. I'm gonna try to use something that I usually use is a glow effect. I'm gonna come to my favorites, select glow, drop it here, and the first thing, I'm gonna select soft light, and everything's gonna come dark. So with shine threshold, I'm gonna start just moving it here, and then I'm gonna bring the gain quite down, gamma up. I'm gonna play with these just 3 sliders, and the gain right up, down, until we're getting those highlights, a bit of contrast. Just keep tweaking until you're happy with what you're seeing. Maybe a bit more gamma. And the thing is, this adds extra saturation. So by default it's in 1, and I don't want to add more saturation, so I'm gonna dial this back. So you can see that the only thing we're adding is glow, but I'm gonna probably add 0.4, so we bring it just a tiny bit back, but not a lot. I think I'm happy with it. I'm gonna go ahead and add some grain to give a bit of a film effect, and should have film grain somewhere here. Film grain, my effect. I usually like the 35 millimeters between 200 or 400. I think 400 is fine and nice. You can zoom in and we can disable this so you can see no grain. Let me pick Manpreet's face, no grain and grain, and I'm gonna play it back. It's quite, it's quite zoomed there, but it's quite nice. It's quite, it's a decent grain. It's quite filmic, so I kind of like it. I'm gonna call this grain. Forgot to name it. I'm gonna add the halation effect inside Davinci. So halation, for the ones who are not shooters, it's the spreading of the light like beyond its proper boundaries, and it's like an aberration that happens shooting film and pointing at a bright source of light, creates like a halation, like surrounding the object. So we're gonna mimic that. I'm gonna reduce the highlight so it's not like just the minimum. This is sort of the threshold of how much, so completely 0. Well, 1. I'm gonna reduce that green just a little bit. It's sort of like a gradient. It's not too bad. And then I'll bring my strength down, so 0, 100. It's mental. But just a little detail, that maybe too much, like 0.115. Just a detail, and let's see how it looks on full screen. It's barely visible. It's just a little bit. Cool. I like how it's looking. Let's name this halation. Okay, up to here I'm pretty happy with what I see. And as I said, once more, I'm just playing back 4K footage. It's not rendering, playing 25 frames a second. It's got a lot of nodes, quite a few effects, like the grain, halation, and the color space transforms, RFX, the glow effect as well. And it's just playing real time. I mean, this is amazing. There's a few more things that I would like to do, and for this I'm gonna use a parallel node, and I'm gonna work on the table, and I'm gonna work on the back wall. Table wise, I think it's too bright. Just gonna reduce the brightness of it. Feathered enough. I'm just gonna bring. Actually, I know it's white, but I'd like it to be a bit warmer. So let me get a bit closer here. And I think it doesn't need more warming up. Let's see how it looks. Looks believable. Yeah. Maybe tiny. Let me disable this. Maybe a tiny bit warmer. Let me just go nuke and bring it back. I think it works quite well. Yeah. And the thing is, this back wall, I'm gonna utilize a gradient. I'm gonna pop it here, and I'm going to bring the gamma more towards the blue. There. Let me lift it a bit, tiny bit more. Nice. So this now is more balanced to the rest of the background. Yes, it's looking good. I'm gonna, just as a finished touch, and for you to see a vignette, just soften the hell out of it, more like filmic cinema vignette rather than a stylistic vignette. Let's bring it down. So this is in or out. Let me see how it's looking. Yeah, just a tiny bit around the edges. I'm gonna call this vignette. I'm gonna give you one more extra tip, and I'm gonna create a node before the vignette. Shift S. I'm gonna call this plug socket. I guess you've spotted it already. Yeah, and I'm gonna use an effect called, you guessed, patch replacer. So you select a portion of the area that you want to patch, and then you select the other portion of the screen that you want to patch it with. As simple as that. There's a few options, really good options. So in this case, let's just go rectangle. So what we want to patch is this area, and I'm gonna press Shift F, so it's a bit bigger, and I'm gonna bring this square. I'm doing completely opposite, sorry. So this one here, and this needs to be the black one. So I can do hide, and that is, It's pretty good for what it is. I think that's perfect. Let me play it back. Yeah, I think it's good enough. And we did it before the vignette, so the vignette should give it that extra touch of darkness around. Yeah, I mean, we used at the end 13 notes. I like this at full screen and play this back. Just to recap, we started converting the spaces. We're creating an input device transform to an output device transform and sandwich this in between because we're ingesting slog, moving the slog into Davinci Intermediate. So all this belongs within Davinci Intermediate. Let me actually see this. And we're, the bucket's pretty full within the Rec 709, so we're squeezing out this image. I like it. We are inputting Davinci White Gamut and outputting Rec 709, and that allows us, if we want to change the output at some point, we don't have to change anything else. So this is future proof. Then we went straight to balance the image. That's the first thing we did. Then I think we created the look, and from then on, if we can call these the primaries, adding the glow for a bit of an effect, just a bit of bloom into the highlights, and then we corrected the skin, giving a bit more life to it. And then we brought down the table that was quite bright for me. The back wall was a bit dark and tungsteny, so we even out this background, and then added effects like grain to make it more filmic. This is up to you. And halation again, so this go hand in hand. Grain and halation is like parts of the film look. And then I created a vignette just to round up the edges and made the plug socket disappear, because why not? Let's keep it clean. So this is how I tackle some of my grades. Of course, I mean, this is my grade, and I believe everyone will do something different. As I said, each note is an idea, so let's think like that. There's different ideas here, things that I come up with that you may not come up with, and make something different and more beautiful. But this is the basis of how to approach a simplistic grade in this case, but I tried to make it be more complicated, adding many nodes. As I said, along the grade, we could have parked it with 5-6 nodes, and we're happy with it. But I just wanted to push a little bit more for you to see the sort of things I would do to a shot. So hope you enjoyed it, and until next time.